Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright people, review of the week time. So, we will pick up where we left off this morning with the Tank Davis. Just some post-fight thoughts on top of that I have on his fight with Rolly Romero. I was obviously going to do a live stream Sunday evening, Monday, but by the time this video goes out, but I didn't realise that the Indy 500, I forgot the Indy 500 was on today, and you know I love motorsport. I had the Monaco Grand Prix, they just get me in the mood. Then I had the Indy 500, which was fantastic, by the way. Marcus Ericsson, he used to drive in F1, he's a tremendous driver. Was always a bit he was a driver who was unremarkable in F1, but once he moved over to Indy, he was brilliant. You know, he's been brilliant since then. But motorsport aside, we will do a live stream this evening, that's for definite, and we'll talk more about this fight then. Now, Tank Davis versus Romero. You know, I said it once, I'll say it again. I expected this result. I expected Tank Davis to win via knockout. In my prediction league, I actually picked him to win in the 6th round, so I got that spot on. I couldn't see this fight going late. I didn't think this fight would go as it did, and I didn't actually realise the scorecards in this fight. So, one judge had Tank Davis up 49-46. Now, personally, and I've watched the fight back twice, I had Rolly winning this fight going into the time of the stoppage. So the fact that you have one judge giving Rolly 1 round, that's a bit of an eyebrow raiser. I would assume that was the 2nd round, because that was the round that Rolly really probably had. That was the most dominant round he had. But I gave him the 1st, I gave him the 2nd, I gave him the 5th as well. And he was winning the 6th round. I obviously gave the 3rd round, you could have given it to either guy, but I thought Tank Davis definitely won the 4th. The other judge had Rolly ahead, and the last judge had Tank ahead, only by 1 point. And I guess because there were certain rounds in there open to interpretation, but I did feel Rolly was doing more of what he wanted. Now, I've said about Tank Davis before that I rate him extremely highly, and this fight, it hasn't, how do I say it? It hasn't dampened my thoughts on Tank Davis. I still think he's a tremendous fighter. I always thought that Rolly was just a bit he's not a terrible fighter, but he's more a gimmick. You know, he's mouthy, he trash talks, but he's not at world level in my opinion, and he's not going to give these top lightweights much trouble. He might spring an upset, that's what upsets are for, but I don't see it personally, but I say that's what upsets are for. But I really thought he'd come out swinging on Tank Davis, looking to apply pressure, and would just walk into a shot. I didn't expect him to be trying to box with Tank Davis, and I guess Tank Davis realised early on, because Davis had a lot of respect, certainly from what I could see, for Romero's power in there. That to me was very apparent early on, because he was stunned in the 2nd round, and he was stunned, you know, go back and look at it. He wasn't badly buzzed or anything like that, but he definitely felt it, and it definitely, you know, stiffened his legs, Tank Davis, in the 2nd round. And what he did was, he looked at Rolly. He was almost kind of downloading what Rolly was doing, looking at synchronicities that Rolly was doing in the ring, and he was able to find that left hand. The timing was just spectacular on that shot, and that's one thing. You see, I think a lot of people don't like Tank Davis as a person, and look, I don't particularly have much time for him as a person, but as a fighter, he is tremendous. I mean, we can't take that away from him. He's a tremendous puncher, he's a good long range, but he can box at long range, he's a good long range boxer, and he is very physically strong. You can see that with Davis straight away. He's got good strength there, and his timing in this fight, once he started realising the kind of manoeuvres, the angles Rolly was doing, it was literally a case of, right, come to me and I'm going to knock you out. That was literally kind of how it was. Like, come to me and I'm going to knock you out. And it reminds me, obviously the Santa Cruz fight, it was an uppercut, but Santa Cruz in that fight, having a lot of success early on, in many ways he was outboxing Tank Davis. Although Santa Cruz, it was more volume in that fight, it was still a case of, right, once I see what you're doing and once I know the angles you're in, I've got you. And it was the 6th round. Obviously in that fight it was an uppercut. In this fight it was a left hand, but it was the same situation. So Tank Davis marches onwards. You know, this is potentially his last fight with Floyd Mayweather. I say potentially because, you know, God knows, it could be, it couldn't be. He talked about leaving him and moving elsewhere. He's talked about maybe staying. So we'll wait and see how this goes. There is obviously Ryan Garcia. He was ringside. I think Ryan Garcia will get his head taken clean off his shoulders by Tank Davis. Just my opinion. Ryan Garcia, tremendously athletic, tremendously talented, but he's just, in terms of defense, he just hasn't. He has no defense. He makes too many defensive mistakes. Way too many. That chin up in the air, you know, he's open to overhand rights, and obviously be the left from Gervonta Davis. And I really just can't see him winning that fight. I can't see him winning that fight. And again, I think that with a trainer like Goose, and no disrespect to him, he's great at teaching his fighters offense. But Ryan Garcia is already good offensively. He needs defense. He needs a trainer who's going to say, hang on a sec, Ryan, pretty boy, you want to be called pretty boy? Well, you need to learn defense. Because you'd be like Mo out of The Simpsons. First it was Kid Handsome, then Kid Gruesome, then finally Kid Mo. That's how Ryan Garcia is going to go. So that is my thoughts on Gervonta Davis versus Rowley. On terms of the undercard, obviously you had Erislandy Lara defeating Spike O'Sullivan. Not much to be said about that fight. That fight kind of struck me because it was proper like, huh? What? Where'd this fight come from? Because it wasn't a fight that I expected. Lara definitely looking a lot more powerful at 160 pounds. He had O'Sullivan down twice in this fight. He won every minute of every round. Obviously, I know Spike, well, I don't know him personally, but I've had him on the channel. I have trained in the gym with him. And Spike O'Sullivan's a great guy. I don't have a lot of time for his trainers. Trainer's a bit of one of them. But in terms of the fight, Lara did what he needed to do. He literally did what he needed to do. It was clockwork. He got the job done. And he moves on. I don't know what they're going to... He's got a regular world title at 160 pounds. And how old is Erislandy Lara now at this stage? He's 39. Is he really 39 years old? Jesus, I didn't realise that. I thought Lara was a bit younger than that. Although saying that, he is 39 years old. And I always, you know, whenever it's a Cuban fighter, to be fair to Lara, he does genuinely, he doesn't look like a Frank Sanchez where, you know, here's his age, but add on an extra 7-8 years. Lara does legit look, probably is 39, but you never know with some of these Cuban fights. You really just don't. I mean, like, he could be 39, he could be 44. God only knows. In terms of some of the other fights that happened on the weekend, there was a card in Russia. And the reason why I bring this card up is because I didn't even know Maxim Vlasov was fighting until I got notification on my prediction league that he had a fight over in Russia. The guy, I believe, was he like 14-2? He didn't have a great record. And he beat nobody in note, the guy he lost to. And yeah, as I just said, he lost to him. He was dropped, I believe, in the 4th round from a body shot. And he quit after, I think, 6-7 rounds. Now, Maxim Vlasov, just put it in context, he's been in there with big punters at cruiserweight. Like Shakiev, and he won that fight. He was down in that fight, but he won it. He dropped Shakiev a couple of times. And he was also in there, he did lose to Glowacki. And he was never down in that fight. And Glowacki can crack a 200. So he's never shown a bad chin, never shown to be wanting in the heart department, but he retired straight after the fight. So that would indicate to me that Vlasov, he knew himself that the body couldn't do it anymore. And based off of that, I can imagine that Eddie Hearn and Joshua Buatsi are kicking themselves that that fight didn't happen in December. Because if you're talking about a guy who, look, I can understand where they were coming from, because Vlasov's previous fight was a loss to Joe Smith Jr. I personally felt he won, but it was a tough fight, and I reckon that probably took what was left of Maxim Vlasov out of him. But with the benefit of hindsight, you could have looked at that and said, oh, Josh Buatsi probably could have won that fight. And if he'd won that fight, I mean, never mind Craig Richards, you could have been saying, we're going straight to world level. As it is, they're probably going to go and fight Dimitri Bivol, but I just can't see him winning that fight. I can see him getting absolutely schooled by Dimitri Bivol, but we'll wait and see. They might not go down that route. God knows what will happen with that, but we shall wait and see. Conor McGregor gave an interview with Sky Sports. He was at the Monaco Grand Prix. the weekend. He said, boxing is my first love in combat sports. Obviously my return will be to UFC and MMA. That's where I will make my return. But boxing, I will grace the squared circle for sure in the future. And he will get absolutely barred from pillar to post if he steps foot in the boxing ring. Because being a good striker in UFC is one thing, but being a good boxer is another. And that he definitely is not. So if he does come back, and look, he won't come back to fight domestic level, British level guys or anything like that. If he's fighting, I would say 160 pounds, he'll be looking for a big fight against a big name, and he would get absolutely battered from pillar to post. Make no mistake about that. You know, I've never had a lot of time for McGregor. I will call it as objective as I can. I don't like him. I don't like him at all. I think as a person, he's just a typical crumbling lad. He's a scumbag. But I try and be as objective as I can be. He is a good, decent enough fighter in UFC and MMA, that kind of thing. Back in the day anyway, I think you've seen better days. But in boxing, I mean, if you look at his sparring against Chris Van der Heerden, and that's one thing that's probably Chris Van der Heerden's biggest claim to fame is sparring McGregor and losing to Spence. You can see straight away he doesn't have the correct stance. You can see the way his shoulders are positioned. You can see the way he's so wide in his stance. He's very rigid. The guy just is not a boxer. And, you know, people can say, gee, you don't like him. You'll say this. Yeah, I don't like the guy, but as you know, there's many people I don't like, and I've always given them their credit when they deserve it, because I don't really care on this channel. At the end of the day, if I don't like someone, yeah, I'll say it. But if they do something in the ring or outside the ring, I'm not going to be a you-know-what and just be like, I'm going to say, like, no, fair play. You know, fair, I might not like you, I might not agree with everything you say, but fair play on this occasion. You've proven me wrong. You know, I've said that several times, you know, just as I've been doing these videos. Jesus, it's been a good few times I've been proven wrong. And, you know, I'm happy to admit that. I'm happy to be proven wrong at times. And that's why I say about people like Conor Ben. You know, I don't think he'll do much in the sport of boxing, but I'd be happy if he proves me wrong. And I'll happily say it. You know, if Ben, I don't think he'll win a world title, but if he does, I'll be the first to say, well, you proved me wrong and you proved a lot of others wrong. Fair due. Fair due. In terms of other news, Juan Francisco Estrada versus Chocolatito 3, targeted for October or September. Yes, I like that. Estrada coming off the back of a win over Cesar Martinez. It wasn't Estrada, it was Chocolatito. And, you know, Chocolatito, the ageless warrior, that's what he is, because, yeah, like, I mean, he got Martinez on short notice, but to be able to perform at that level, like, I wrote him off after the Riverside loss, the second loss, and I was surprised that he still had this in the tank. Tremendous. I can't wait. I love this fight. I was upset we didn't get it. We didn't get it in March, but we will get it this year, so I'm very, very happy with that. I'm also very happy because I really was in a bit of a downer last week. I'll tell you why. Because Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker, we were told that this fight was likely to happen in July, on July 2nd, in the Wembley Arena. And I said, right, look, I want to go see this fight. Me and Jamie were talking about going together, you know, Punch Perfect Boxing. Shout out to him, tremendous channel, great guy. And I booked accommodation, booked flights, and it didn't happen. Not happening. So I was thinking, crap. Then I find out the hotel's non-refundable, and it was there. So I was like, crap. I'm going to have to go over to because I couldn't afford not to go. So I'm going to have to go over to the UK for no boxing. Yeah, I can see some of the sites. I'll go to Winchester, still will. Go to Winchester, see the cathedral, stuff like that. But I wanted to see some boxing. Well, thankfully, tickets will go on sale tomorrow, or today. Joe Joyce will fight on July 2nd at the Wembley Arena, as was previous. But his opponent is going to be Frank Warren's favourite, his number one, the guy who you see on most of his cards, TBC, to be confirmed. I suspect it will be Manuel Char. He had a fight the weekend, apparently he won. It was a farce of a fight. But I suspect they'll put him in with Manuel Char. Low risk. Just they'll sell it as, you know, a former world champion. Probably Manuel Char. He beat the crap out of Char, and then we'll probably get Parker at some stage. But saying that, I'll talk about Parker now in a sec. On the undercard, you have Jason Cunningham versus Alani Tete. Now that fight's interesting. You know, I'll admit I was very high on Tete. I picked him to beat Casemiro. He got knocked out in 3 rounds, I think it was, in 2019. I don't think Tete has fought since then. In fact, I'll do a quick search. Say quick, God knows. Alani, Tete. Has he fought since then? Let's have an old check on BoxRec. He has. He fought in December of 2012, so he was out of the ring for 2 years, and it was a first round knockout in South Africa. Tete's always been a good puncher. I think he holds the record for the quickest knockout in a world title fight. I think it was, 11 seconds? So who's on this undercard? We also have, so that's going to be, I suspect it's going to be the main event. We have Sam Noakes, who is a decent prospect, actually, to be fair. He's looking like a good puncher. We have Callum Johnson versus Igor Mccalkin. Now, Eddie Hearn, I remember him trying to do this fight a couple of years ago. Back in 2019, I think it was, for the European title. I think he was looking to get that set up and then have the winner face Boazzi. But obviously, Callum Johnson moved over to Frank Warren. He's looked a shell of himself. I mean, how old is Callum Johnson now? He's 36. Well, he looks old for 36. Even though he's not someone... He hasn't taken much abuse in his career, to be fair. Although saying that, he's Joe Gallagher fighter. So Joe Gallagher is just like, right, we're out of heavy bags. Whose turn is it today? Callum, it's your turn. Scott, it's your turn. Don't move at it and don't do at it and just take shots. Something like that. You know what Joe Gallagher is like. But he's not looked himself lately. And this could be a good one because Mccalkin hasn't looked himself either. He is very tough. Like Mccalkin, he's been stopped twice. He was stopped in his last fight. He was stopped against Kovalev. But he was never down in any of these fights. You know, he's always been very durable. So we shall see how that goes. Nathan Heaney's on the undercard as well. Nathan Heaney is a fun fighter. Like he's entertaining in the sense of his ring walk, everything else. But he is garbage. Absolutely garbage. Like he's going nowhere. But I'll enjoy him nonetheless. So I think I don't think that's bad. You know, I think that's actually, you know, I'm not too displeased with that. I'll get to go over to that card and, you know, enjoy myself. You know, I haven't been to a boxing show. I haven't been to a big boxing show in 4 years, nearly 4 years. And I haven't been to a boxing show, because the last one was a small hall show. When was it? It was a show in Cork. It was 2019, July 2019. And it was the same night, I tell you actually, it was the same night that Pacquiao fought Thurman and Dillian Whyte fought Rivas. I remember that because I ended up watching the fights in the hotel after. So, and I done the post fights. I wasn't on camera at the time, but I done the post fights actually out at the hotel. So I remember that actually. So that was the last fight I was at live. So it'd be nice. It'd be nice to get back and it's not. I always like to get to a show a year. It's always nice just seeing the fights live. I always try to get a nice seat close enough to ringside anyway. So hopefully I get to see this and hopefully it's a good card. In terms of July 2nd as well, there's another fight being planned, which is Hughie Fury versus Michael Hunter. That's being planned for July 2nd, Ben Shalom revealed. It will also be Ben Whittaker's debut. So, interesting. I like that fight. I think that I would be favouring Michael Hunter to win the fight via points. But if Hughie Fury needs a good win, and if he can get that win over Michael Hunter, that will push him on, because I feel like they've been using this for years. Oh, Hughie, his age. He's going on, what, 27, 28, older? They can't use that excuse anymore. He's got to get a move on now. And I think Hunter is a good fighter, but I'll be picking Hunter to win that fight. Definitely. Canelo Alvarez, on his fight with Triple G, which is upcoming, he says it's personal. It's now personal. So whenever he steps in the ring, it's personal. He never stops talking about me. I've never mentioned his name. I've always been in his mouth. He always talks about me, and that makes it even more personal. Yet they will be doing their best to sell this. I don't hate this fight. Well, I'll take it for what it is. Take it for what it is. I will watch it. I'm no doubt I'll be entertained by it. And look, I think Triple G is always going to be a hard fight for Canelo, but I just think this Triple G is slowed down sufficient enough that Canelo will thrive. I really do. But look, we'll take it for what it is. You know, I'd love to see Canelo fight live sometime. Won't be this time. Even if America wasn't, you know what, I still would probably wait till next year to go and see Canelo live, but I would love to go and see just a fight in America in general. That's the next kind of category to tick off. So we have that. Here's one thing, right? Dillian Whyte, after he found out that the Parker fight was pushed back, he went onto Instagram and said, I just want the... Well, I think he misspelled biggest, because he spelled it Buggiest, so boogiest. I just want the biggest fight at this stage of my career. Let's go, put hands on you once again, we'll do it again. There's no better time for a rematch between Dillian Whyte and Joseph Parker. So he wants that rematch with Parker. I know Parker, since they first had their fight in 2018, has always been looking to get that rematch over the line. I've always felt, and this is pre-Povetkin, pre-Fury, I've always felt if they did have a rematch, Parker would win. I think Parker would win. I always felt that if they had a rematch now, 2019, 2020, 2021, I always felt Parker would win. I always felt Parker would win the rematch. Especially now, he'd probably stop Dillian Whyte. He'd probably stop him, because you could see the skill gap was there. I think the headbutt didn't help in that fight, which happened in the second round, which put Parker down. But I've always felt Dillian Whyte wins I've always felt Joseph Parker wins the rematch. I've always felt that. I think he'd know what to expect and he'd be able to adjust. So, especially now, I really do feel Joseph Parker wins it now. But I reckon he's going to go down the Joe Joyce route. This was an interesting one. Virgil Ortiz versus David Avanesian, reportedly a done deal August the 6th in Texas. Now, I've seen Hatman talk about this, and he says that this could be Virgil Ortiz trying to put one over on Conor Benn to say, well, I'll beat the guy, you won't fight. And I could see that, but I tell you more, I reckon, and just me, sometimes you got to think outside the box here, and I'm not saying this is gospel, as Hatman said, but, this boxing, with all kind of, ideas are welcome. I wouldn't be shocked if this was Oscar De La Hoya looking to say, well, Eddie, my guy beat the guy, your guy, seems unwilling to fight. And I'm not saying Conor Benn's unwilling to fight David Avanesian. I think it's more Eddie Hearn. But I reckon Oscar De La Hoya would absolutely relish that. He would love to be able to come out and say, well, a Golden Boy fighter fought the guy, your guy, doesn't want to fight, and he beat him. And I'm sure for Eddie Hearn would probably look at, Virgil Ortiz, and I think he'll beat Avanesian and he'll be able to say, like, well, Conor Benn would have done the same thing. I think what they said about Avanesian, that it's not a big enough fight, that he's not a big enough name. Yeah. So Chris Algieri is. So Chris Van Heerden is. I just said at the start of this video that his biggest claim to fame is losing to Errol Spence and sparring Conor McGregor. So he's a bigger claim to fame. He's bigger. That win will boost your stock bigger than beating David Avanesian. It won't. The Conor Benn situation is annoying. I think Conor Benn would take that fight, but I'm sure Eddie Hearn is thinking, look, Eddie Hearn at the end of the day, who does he have really other than Conor Benn to make him money? To try and build his own, to try and get his own brand bigger in the UK. Yes, he's got Canelo for the time being in the US, that does help. But in the UK, he's got really no one. He hasn't really taken many of these Olympians from the GB squad of 2020. He only really has Conor Benn for the zone. He doesn't want Benn to go in there against Avanesian. He's already learned that lesson from Josh Kelly, being absolutely battered from pillar to post by Avanesian. He's seen that, probably remembers that, and thinking, I don't need you. I had high hopes for Josh Kelly. This is Eddie Hearn. I had high hopes for Josh Kelly. You beat him. This is my next best. I'm not having you beat him too. So maybe that's the way Eddie Hearn is looking at it. And from De La Hoya is petty like that. He does not like Eddie Hearn. And it wouldn't shock me if he'll come out and say, well, my guy is fighting the guy, your guy don't want to fight. Or I'm not afraid to put my guy in with this guy. So expect that. I well and truly expect that from De La Hoya. I really would. In other news, obviously I seen Deontay Wilder has a statue of him in Alabama, and he is confirmed he will resume his boxing career. I will always tune in to watch Deontay Wilder fight. I love watching him fight. I just hope for his sake. I worry about Wilder's health in terms of, he's been in two very, very tough fights. He's coming on to the wrong side of 30. How will he be physically, mentally, neurologically coming back? I hope he'll be okay. He has that great eraser, that great equalizer of punching power. But I just wonder, who will they put him in there with? Will they look to match him carefully and maybe get him? Because he's not going to get a world title shot voluntary. Unless maybe it's Tyson Fury. But he probably won't get a voluntary shot against Usyk or someone like that. But, you know, maybe he might look and think, you know what, if Fury is retiring, if Usyk decides to vacate, you know, I could pick one of them up. You know, I'm number 1 ranked with the WBC. Get a win over whoever. Maybe fight Andy Ruiz. And then see where I am. While I could still be in some entertaining fights. He definitely could. So, people, for now, I'm going to leave it with that. Obviously, we'll do a live at some point this evening. Probably about 8 o'clock. 7:30, 8 this evening. We'll go live for about an hour and have a little chat and talk about the fights. So, people, I will leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Smash the like button if you could. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. I have a special video planned for you guys this week. A very, very special one. Kind of, remember the documentary I did on Fury Whyte? It's not a documentary, but it's something similar. So watch the space. We'll have it out probably by Wednesday. Hopefully Wednesday, Thursday. For now, I'll leave you with that. I'll talk to these people. Peace.